he's quite a, he doesn't know what's going to happen with show. Anyway, he told me to prepare some remarks, and I did, okay? And I'm going to read them, all right? Thank you very much, Joe, for those very kind words. Good afternoon, ladies, gentlemen, veterans, soldiers, sailors, airmen, marines, whatever. We're gathered here today to remember the events of September 2nd, 1945, when Emperor Hirohito of Japan boarded the U.S. Missouri warship in Tokyo Bay and bowed in total surrender to General Douglas MacArthur, commander of the Allied armies in the Pacific Theater of Operations. The Axis powers in Europe, having surrendered in April, made this day an event, the end of World War II. I am honored to be here as a veteran of the Second World War to share with you my memories and to honor my comrades whose numbers are rapidly decreasing each passing day. Not many left. A great deal has been written about the Second World War, and the film industry has been able to bring home the brutality and sometimes the beauty of it all in living color. This has been made real to us. This conflict was of such magnitude never seen before with countries of the world, but primarily France, England, Russia, and smaller states of Europe, all uniting to stop the inhuman aggression of Germany and Italy, specifically from Spain. And provoked by Japan, in the bombing of Pearl Harbor, the United States of America joined with the Allies to defeat the Axis, as they were called. It indeed was a war between countries of the world, and one can simply say a battle of evil against goodness and hope. And in the end, goodness and civility prevailed. In 1939, Germany invaded Poland, and thus the war began in Europe. And on December 7, 1941, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, and thus the United States had no other choice but to enter the battle. On December 7, 1941, America was vastly different than it is today. There was racial segregation, rampant discrimination, and in fact, two separate but unequal societies by law. And thus, the military of the United States of America was as society was totally segregated. When it became inevitable that our nation would enter the war, an army had to be prepared to fight. Selective service was instituted, and the NAACP and many other civil rights organizations joined in the debate calling for recruitment of colored soldiers. The reason was simple. If they fight the wars of this country, then they have the right to be equal in all aspects of the American dream and expect equal access to education, jobs, housing, and all the other rights enjoyed by white Americans, including the elimination of segregation, discrimination, and lynching. That was their argument, and those soldiers were eager to prove their patriotism and bravery, and die if it became necessary in defense of America and what America should stand for. On April 13, 1943, the Chief of Staff, U.S. Army ordered the commanding general to move certain organizations to Fort Huachuca, Arizona, in order to form the 92nd Infantry Division, the Buffalo Soldiers. All colored except officers above the rank of captain. Once established at Huachuca, the 92nd got down to business. The training was rugged and intense, but calculated to mold recruits into a hard, mobile strike force that could operate anywhere. And in May of 1944, fresh from Officer Kansas School as a second lieutenant, I joined the 370th Combat Team of the 92nd Infantry Division as Battalion Intelligence Officer. I was 21 years old and ready to lead troops in battle and fight for freedom of others overseas and equality for all at home. On the Army base, life was wonderful, exciting, hopeful, and extremely supportive. However, once off base, nothing had changed. The uniform of the Army did not make a difference if you were a person of color. You still had to ride in the back of the bus, ride the Jim Crow trains in the South, and endure the invectives of the local townspeople. On an occasion, when colored soldiers were escorting German soldiers to prisoner war camps in western states, stopping at a restaurant on the highway, the German soldiers entered the front door, were seating at dining tables, serve waitresses, and colored soldiers had to go to the rear and get sandwiches to a window and eat standing up. When our training was complete, we sailed to Italy, and on September the 1st, 1944, the 370th Combat Team became the first African-American fighting force to enter combat when we crossed the Arno River north of Pisa, liberated the walled city of Lucca, who received a hero's welcome, and continued north inland from the Mediterranean Sea, liberating the towns of Viareggio, Gallicano, Pietrasano, and Genoa. We were the advanced troops on the left flank of General Mark Clark's Fifth Army. And on our left flank was the 442nd Nisei Regiment of Japanese American soldiers who, like us, the Buffalo Soldiers, were in there fighting and dying to prove their loyalty to America, despite bearing the burden of being of Japanese ancestry. The Nisei Regiment was brilliant in battle, heroic in maneuver, and the most decorated unit in the entire war. And on our right flank was an 88th Infantry Division of white Americans, all poetic, white, black, and yellow, soldiers of America fighting a war together. Two of the three were fighting just to receive the rights and privileges of the other. During the fast and brutal campaign, the 359th of 92nd Division Regiment suffered every casualty in the Trin-Crowley Canal. And at the Battle for Summer Colonia on December 26, 1944, nearly all the 370th Combat Team was killed or wounded, and I was seriously wounded by shrapnel from an 88 millimeter field cannon. We held the town and prevented the Nazis from capturing the port of Livorno on the Ligurian gateway to the Ligurian Sea. The war in Europe ended in 1945. After 9 months of combat, defending the left flank of the 85th Army, we had done our part. Now we returned home and realized that not a lot had changed in America. Except President Truman signed an executive order eliminating segregation in the armed forces. However, it will be 10 years before the Supreme Court rules school segregation illegal. It will be 20 years before Congress passed civil rights legislation. It will be 51 years before Lieutenant John Fox, who died at Summer Colonia, or any African-American soldier who received the Congressional Medal of Honor. And 56 years later, the Italians, who never forgot, erected a monument to memorize Lieutenant John Fox in the 92nd Infantry Division, the Buffalo Soldier, and all those who died in the defining battle of December 26, 1944 at Summer Colonia. And today, 75 years after the end of fighting in World War II, we remember all those who died to make the world better. And those who believe their sacrifice would cause America to recognize all its people as equal and deserving of the same rights and privileges that makes us America. Much has changed, but we have much to do. Most unfortunately, on May 25th, 2020, in Minneapolis, Minnesota, an African-American man named George Floyd was killed by a police officer. All that we had come to believe about the country we were ready to give our lives for vanished in a devastating 9 minutes. And personally, for me, at my age, I can only wonder if it will ever matter. Well, that's what I did.